I'll skip right into talking about how we integrate with Zendesk. We currently have about 100 different offices, about 2,000 users sending us tickets through our Zendesk. And we serve different purposes for different people. We may be outsourced IT for a company who has no IT. We may be what I call supplemental IT for someone who has in-house IT, but they need more help because they don't have a large staff, or because they're primarily Windows-based and they need Apple device support. And then we also have what we call Robot Cloud, which is a set of tools that we provide IT. And then we ourselves also use those tools. So what this really looks like is our professional services, primarily in Chicago, not that it needs to be just in Chicago, but people tend to want to do business with people who they know and who are local. So we've kind of developed that in Chicago. And then Robot Cloud being tools, people don't care so much if the tools come from Chicago, so that they use those just about anywhere. Two pieces of Robot Cloud, which you'll hear me talk more about: dashboard and support menu. Dashboard is an online summary of your devices, and support menu is an application that lives on your Mac and most recently on your iOS. And I'm going to talk more about support menu in a little bit because it ties in with Zendesk. But the real power of Robot Cloud are what we call actions, and actions are anything we can automate. And we're really big into automation. If we can automate it, we can turn it into an action, then that's great because we can scale that and we can provide a more consistent service. The problem with actions when we're talking to people is that they can't visualize an action because there's really nothing to see until you experience it. And the way we expose that is through alerting or notices. If something is wrong with the machine, then we trigger a notice or an alert. And the way we do that is we talk to the Zendesk API to get it into our Zendesk. We could just alert the user directly and not go through Zendesk, but we really like the ability to search Zendesk by serial number. Every time a device triggers an alert, we tag it with the device serial number, so I can go into Zendesk and do a search on serial number and pull up the complete history of that device over its lifetime, at least the lifetime that we've managed it. And then, of course, we get automated reminders from Zendesk. We trigger that first alert, but that doesn't mean the user is going to respond to it. So we have the ability through Zendesk to remind them, a week later or a day later or 2 weeks later, however, our system is set up. Of course, we still have to do things manually. You can't get away from that completely, but we used to do everything manually. We used to have to discover the problem, whether on our own or the client would tell us about it. We'd have to create the ticket. We'd have to investigate and resolve the ticket, update the ticket. And that's a standard workflow that a lot of people still operate on today, but our what we call modern automated system is all about, can we auto-discover the problem? Can we automatically fix it if we find it? And then can we create and maybe even solve the ticket? All without touching it at all. That's kind of our goal. And just to give you 3 examples of what I'm talking about. One is malware. This is an issue that's growing on the Mac side. We recently developed an action that will look for malware, and if we find it, there's no need to get permission to remove it because it's pretty much guaranteed that the user wants it removed. So we remove it, and then we notify the user with a solved ticket. And that happens automatically. We don't have to get involved at all, unless the user has questions or concerns. Sometimes they will, and sometimes they'll reach out to us, and that's great. That's fantastic. But we can do so much more through automation. Another example is Time Machine, which I kind of hate to use as an example because we're not big fans of Time Machine. We prefer Crash Plan. However, we kept getting our end users kept asking for Time Machine alerts. So we're like, fine, we'll give you Time Machine alerts. So Time Machine often will not run for one reason or another. And when we notice that happening, we'll notify the user automatically with a ticket, and we'll suggest ways in which they can fix it. And if they can work through that on their own and we notice they fixed it, then we'll auto-solve the ticket, once again with no interaction on our part. Or if they need to, they'll reach out to us and we'll get involved and help them. And then the last example, we like to let people know when their warranty is expiring. In some cases, they have the ability to extend their warranty. In other cases, it's simply, sort of end-of-life warranty. And we used to do this by hand, and this was very time-consuming, and sometimes we'd get behind and we wouldn't get the notices out on schedule. So now what we do is if we see that a device is about to expire, we automatically create a ticket, we notify the user, and we may set it depending if they have the ability to extend the warranty or, once again, automatically solve the ticket if it's just a notification, hey, FYI, your device is going out of warranty. I want to get into some of the details of Zendesk using the Zendesk analytics. This is our last 30 days industry average. It says 85 tickets. We've generated 1,700 tickets. If we look at that over the first quarter of 2015, pretty much the same picture, just more tickets. And this is the breakdown for Q1 of 2015. And you can see that over 60% of our tickets are being generated by the API. And then we've got email, we've got web, and we actually have 8 tickets for mobile SDK. So we just started that. So hopefully we'll see more of those. But those are probably 8 test tickets, to be honest. And if we go back to 2013, a couple years ago, when we really started building this out, you can see it doesn't look that much different. And 2014, at first glance, doesn't look that much different, but when we compare them side by side, we start to see that we're having a problem. Problem is that it's really easy to add an automation, but we ran into some issues, and that was, in the beginning, the automations were all going into our Zendesk, and we didn't know who they were for, right? We knew the device, but we didn't know the user. So we had to manually assign these tickets, which meant on Monday, we had a lot of tickets from the weekend. And manual processing meant that errors could occur. I don't think many did, or if they did, I didn't know about it. But basically, I had a mutiny on my hands because my team was saying, we can't add any more automations because we're generating too many tickets. So we had to work to finesse that. And one, we decided, well, what if we know the user? We know the user, we can deliver the ticket directly to the user without manually assigning it. What about other Zendesk? We're working with more people around the world. If they're using Zendesk, why don't we send it to their Zendesk? It doesn't even need to touch our Zendesk. And then inline, what we call inline ticketing, rather than creating a new ticket, if Time Machine fails every day of the week, you're going to generate 7 tickets. Now we only create 1 ticket and we just add to that ticket. So it's a lot smarter. And so what that gave us this year, after making those changes, is a huge 66% decrease in the number of tickets that we were generating. And we used to manually process 50 to 60 per day, and now we're processing about 10 to 20 per day manually through the API. Now, there's still room for improvement because we still have to know who these people are, and I'll explain that in just a minute. I want to give you a couple examples of how we use the API. I talked about actions and actions being invisible, but we have another way that we can trigger a ticket through the API, and that's through something called self-service. Self-service is an application that Jamf software puts out. Our solution's built around Jamf. I think you guys use it here, right?
We have it too. So on everyone's machine, if you pull up self-service, you could, for instance, install the printers on a certain floor in one of our buildings, that sort of thing, or go ahead and install iWork or Office.
Yeah. So this is our self-service, and we often get calls from people saying, my internet's slow. So rather than us spend the time investigating whether that's true or not, we ask them to run this action, which does a speed test, spits out the results, and says, would you like to open a ticket or not? Because in some cases they might. In other cases, like, no, that looks pretty normal. Okay, I'm good. If they do choose to create a ticket, we know what device generates that ticket, but we really need to know who the user is, who creates the ticket. So where does that ticket get created? And this is kind of what it looks like. Our alerting system looks to support menu and says, are they authenticated with Zendesk? If they are, then we pass it on to the API directly to the end user. So the end user gets a ticket that's auto-generated. However, they may not have support menu, or they may have support menu, but they're not authenticated, which means we just have to deliver it to our own Zendesk and then figure out who it belongs to. And then in those cases where the client of ours doesn't have a Zendesk at all, we can deliver it to their own ticketing system through an email. In addition, when we started out, it was just our Zendesk, but now we've built it so we can connect this to anyone's Zendesk. So if they have their own Zendesk, as I mentioned earlier, we want to deliver it directly to them and not have to go through our Zendesk. We used to bring it in and try to do ticket sharing, and now we're like, well, let's just go straight to their Zendesk. Another way that someone can generate a ticket through the API is through support menu. This is support menu for Mac. This is a preference pane where we have our Forget Computers Zendesk as default, and as long as they have a valid username or password there, then they're authenticated to our Zendesk. The end user can also add additional Zendesk, and I did this because I often interact with Code 42 of Crash Plan, and they use Zendesk, so I wanted to interact with them through support menu. I interact through Zendesk with support menu, through Zendesk support, and then every time I have an issue, if they have a Zendesk, I put it in here, and recently I put in what is my IP, and I can't remember why I had a ticket with them, but they use Zendesk, and we were able to integrate. And this is kind of what it looks like if you have multiple Zendesk, and you can the user can submit a request. Most users would just have one. I'm kind of a power user in this case. The ability to interact as an end user with the ticket from the desktop is really nice. And getting Mac OS X notifications through Notification Center is fantastic, mainly because I get too much email. So email will get lost, and this is a way to get it out of email. And recently we developed something similar for iOS. It's more limiting in functionality, but it uses the Zendesk API and allows anyone to view our knowledge base or create a ticket. Currently, it's limited to our current customers, but we're working on opening that up just like we did the Mac version so that other Zendesk could be integrated. And what all of this is leading to is we now have many ways by which our clients can contact us. And, it's not just email. They can go online through Zendesk or our dashboard to view information. They can open tickets or interact with us through support menu for Mac, support menu for iOS. And once we get notifications in iOS, which we'll have soon, then that'll work on notifications on the Apple Watch, which we're really excited about. And I just want to point out, because a lot of people don't, at least in our experience, know their Zendesk username and password. We do a handoff between support menu on the Mac and Zendesk on the web browser. So you can just click a ticket and it'll take you to Zendesk. And if you have keychain enabled, so that's kind of a big if, because not everyone does, but if you have keychain enabled, it'll do the handoff and automatically log them in. So we're trying to encourage them to, view. Some people get confused if they have multiple tickets, and sending them online is nice. But support menus also help with that as well. Just to kind of wrap this up, we see the end user benefits as being empowerment to give them more control through self-service, through generating tickets, through ease of use, and really getting the communication outside the inbox. People have so many emails today. The tickets and alerts and notifications were getting lost for us. We weren't getting responses, and we're getting a much better response through support menu. And then for IT, automation, ability to scale, which is huge, and then the archived history, which we love. A couple things about support menu that we've run into. People who know Zendesk, they know it, but they know it typically from the agent perspective. And so they look at support menu and they're a bit confused, because support menu is really built for the end user. You have to have an end user account, not an agent account. If you put your agent account in the support menu, that doesn't do any good. Just go to Zendesk, right? But as an end user, with an end user account, it works great. The other thing that, just because I don't want you to, have a conversation with someone and maybe say, hey, yeah, you should use this. And I don't want to overcomplicate it, but there are various options or levels. Robot Cloud that I talked to you today about, there on the first column, includes everything, right? Starter Kit is a little more limited. And then you can also buy the Mac App Store version of support menu, and that has Zendesk integration, customization, but of course it doesn't have actions because there's no Jamf included. It doesn't have inline ticketing. There are features missing. So just because you see support menu doesn't mean you're going to get everything that I just talked about here. But what I do want to stress is that inline ticketing, which is really powerful and requires Zendesk, absolutely requires it. And so we have had some of our customers switch to Zendesk because they wanted that and they didn't have anything or they weren't committed to anything as far as ticketing goes. I would love to know from your team's perspective any thoughts or ideas you might have or opportunities that you see that where we could enhance this even further. We're basing this on our own use case and the use case of our customers, but as we pick up new customers, we often get new ideas for what to do with it. That's pretty much the presentation that I have prepared. Thank you very much.